A 1, 2, 3, and what's your favorite scary movie? Is it creepy? Is it groovy? Masher! Hey everyone, and welcome again to Masher. I am your host, Allison Sherberg, and this is episode 2! Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, let's do this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, let's do this. All right, so I know I asked for some cocktail suggestions and said it would be, one of them would be dropping this episode, but I got lazy and overwhelmed with the day of work. So I am going to be giving a shout out to Belching Beaver for their Deftones Phantom Bride India Pale Ale. Ooh. And I promise the upcoming weeks I will be making cocktails and giving you all shout outs. I just didn't have the time today. But as a result, I did want to give some shout outs. So the first shout out I want to give is to my friend Chloe for making this beautiful little spooky floral for me. And it's real. Those are all real flowers. It's actual water. So it's just really beautiful. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to my friend Marissa, who made the amazing logo that's now the forever logo for Masher. And I'm so excited. It's just great. So what I did was I'm going to start doing final girl awards and final boy, or I guess final guy awards. So you guys both get the final girl award. Woohoo! For just being amazing friends and adding some spooky to my life this month and really helping out with the podcast or video series. I'm not doing a podcast. This is not a podcast. Okay. So for episode 2, what I'm going to be talking about today is quarantine theme. So the first movie I'm going to talk about is Host, which is a new movie that launched during quarantine, of course, during COVID on Amazon Prime. And then the second one is going to be an actual documentary. So it's a little kind of off topic, and it's You Cannot Kill David Arquette. So in terms of quarantine, I read an article today that said basically horror movies have a whole new theme when it comes to, horror genre and just kind of movie ideas with what we literally lived through this year. And I thought about it and I was like, well, I mean, I'm all for infected movies and diseases and zombies and anything to do with like post-apocalyptics. I feel like you can change it. But for COVID, I mean, what are we going to do? Just do a bunch of movies where everyone's on Zoom or Microsoft Teams and then something spooky happens? Because it already happened, and it's a movie called Host. Oh my gosh, guys. This movie was... I had a discussion with my friend about it because it's not top budget. It was made during COVID and you can tell. But I think it's going to be the only one of its in this genre, this, supposed new genre that's going to come out for horror movies that actually happened during COVID. And it was the first one to utilize that. And I think it's just so... powerful because of the low budget. They literally probably, I don't know, I will look into this, but I believe they had to have social distance to make the movie. I'm sure people are actually separated, and it's something that had to be done low budget, and it was a lot of just kind of simple tricks that made it spooky, and I thought it was just such a well done movie. They really came out the gate in the middle of COVID, and they're like, here you go. Here's a movie to help you cope. And so in honor of that, I have my lit candle because that's a part of like seances. So, and then I have my Ouija board, of course, that always kind of makes a display piece in the background. So the movie is about, I think it's 6 friends that get together on Zoom and they sign up to do a seance, and none of them are really into it but the one girl who begged their friends to do it. And of course, when you don't believe in it and you work with somebody who can bring people or can talk to people from that are dead, I'll remember that word, can talk to spirits and a medium, let's say. And I thought it was really well done, like I said. And then, of course, the girls kind of like fake that things are happening, but then the whole thing was you have to be united with the candle, and somebody's candle goes out, and that's when all the stuff goes down, which is crazy. So it's very paranormal. I would say it's in that genre of, I would say like camcorder, honestly, like found footage in that genre, and it fits really well. I truly think that it stands alone in this new genre of quarantine COVID because, like I said, there will be better movies that come out and that'll have this theme of what we actually went through. But I truly believe that that's the standalone just because it happened during quarantine. They filmed it socially distanced. And I mean, you can't, with a higher budget, it's going to look better, but you can't say it was true to what we're actually going through and it didn't hit, theaters or our TV screens during the actual COVID. So I just feel Host is a really good wind down, maybe not a wind down film during this time, but you know what I mean? It's like, I think it has such a special place in my heart because it was so inventive and it just kind of brought back you're pushing someone into a corner with little budget. How can we make this work? How can we do a horror movie during this time? And I think they killed it. And I'm just excited to see where this genre goes. But again, this is a true standalone movie that really deserves its praise because it really just kind of came out of the gates. And so good for you guys. And I highly recommend it. It is a Amazon Prime original. But yeah, it's a really fun one and kind of made a movie to be in the realm of what we're dealing with, like the exact realities. So I thought it was really well done for what they've had and the budget that they had. So kudos and cheers. This isn't a bad IPA. Okay. So my next film, I wanted to give some backstory. I know it's not You Cannot Kill David Arquette is a documentary, and it's about David Arquette, who, if you all have seen the Scream franchise, is Deputy Dewey. And he's such an integral part of the horror genre due to that franchise. Wes Craven is just a standalone genius when it comes to Nightmare on... where is it? Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy over there. And then, of course, he came out with Scream in the 90s. And I think Scream is one of my personal favorite franchises, if not my favorite franchise, truly next to Evil Dead, because of just kind of the rules that they broke. And it was, I think, groundbreaking and kind of was like, okay, this is the new momentum into the 90s. It's so fun. I think it like airs on, ebbs on comedy. Of course, it can be spooky. It was spooky to me when I was a kid, but I just appreciate it now for the humor and just the creativity of the franchise. So moving into that, David Arquette, huge in the horror film industry. And with the documentary of You Cannot Kill David Arquette, it actually goes into his career as a wrestler it's insane. So I didn't know this, and I learned this through the documentary, but David Arquette during that time was on an upswing, and in the 90s when he was filming Scream, and he kind of did a 180 and he made a wrestling movie, which is actually good. And I forgot the name of it, but it was actually a very good movie. It's fun. And then in trying to promote the movie, I think, if I'm getting this right, he actually wrestled in the WWE and then won the title that year, and people were livid, and he was a stain on WWE history for a decade. People were outraged that it's like, how is this actor going to get the title when like hard working wrestlers are, going toe to toe with him, and like who made that call and all of this. But wrestling fans, and I made like a little Venn diagram because this is what I learned what to do in school. This is one of the few things I applied today. So when it comes to horror and wrestling, we're pretty diehard fans, and David Arquette falls right in the middle. So as you know, as a horror fan, like we are ride or die, and same with wrestlers or wrestling fans. And so he was kind of like in the middle, and then lost all credit from the wrestling side. And this documentary is him trying to actually work towards being a wrestler. And I can only imagine even just anybody who was a stain on like an industry, and he loves wrestling so much, it looks like. And I can't even imagine, like, what if I did something in a horror movie and I flubbed up so bad that I'm like a stain on horror? That would be, oh my God, I don't know how that would be. That's just terrible. So the reason I'm doing this, that was a big preface. The reason I'm doing this as a quarantine, in the quarantine episode, because it's like, what does this have to do with anything for quarantine theme after you talk about host? I feel like with everybody in the industry, this year has just shut us down. Entertainment industry has literally paused. Nothing is going on. He had matches lined up this year. I know that. And for someone like him, that could be the end. I mean, this guy has literally had such a struggle to finally get into the upswing of things and like really find a purpose, that makes him happy. And here we are in 2020 with quarantine, and that stalls everybody. And this is just kind of, hey, David Arquette, we love you. And it's weird to say I'm proud of you, but I am. Like, how do I know him? It was literally less than 2 hours and, a severely edited version of someone's life. So who the heck am I? I don't know David Arquette at all. But you're doing great. I just really don't want you I don't want you to lose momentum, and I don't want you to think that your life doesn't have purpose or hasn't impacted us in a positive way. I mean, it was so sad to watch that you kind of think of Scream and like the horror genre as a failure. Maybe you don't. Maybe it was just kind of portrayed that way in the beginning of the movie, because there was that step to being like the Brad Pitt. But like, who wants to be the Brad Pitt, especially now? I feel like horror genre and nerds are really taking over the world right now. I don't know. You've done so much, and you've been in such a pivotal, groundbreaking franchise, and I don't want you to think that you will die a nobody. Like, everybody knows David Arquette. You literally can't kill David Arquette. He is in this to win this, and by win this, win the hearts of wrestling fans. That's kind of the twofer that I wanted to talk about today. And like I said, even though it's not a horror movie, it is heavily related. That's pretty much this episode, and we'll get back into more normal themes. I should have turned this on. Okay. So grab your candy. I can't do accents. Thank you all so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Goodbye.